All right, gentlemen, episode 3 of BigBasket presents Decoding Nutrition with me and Sid, and joining us today is Dr. Ruchir Lawate. Subscribe to this channel. There's going to be lots more about health, nutrition on this channel. Today we are discussing, gentlemen, diets. People use the word diet dude, I'm on a diet. Assuming that the word diet means eating lesser, right? Which you're watching what you're eating. Ruchir, can you tell me what is a diet? Why is it important? Just some of the basics before we move on to more depth.
So I think when you get into a diet per se, you should have clarity as to why you're getting into the diet. So most people, like you rightly said, get into a diet to lose weight, by which they mean they want to lose fat.
Correct.
And how I think is a good way to approach a diet is to see that most diets either focus on what you eat, how much you eat, or when you eat. And all the diets that are there out right now fall under categories based on this.
It's funny when people are trying to avoid eating and the word they use is I'm dieting.
Yeah.
Like the word dieting has basically become an excuse to say, I'm not going to eat right now.
Whereas actually diet is what you eat.
It was what you eat, yeah.
So there is also this concept of public dieting.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do this where they remember that they're on a diet only when they're out in public. कि सब डिनर कर रहे हैं, सब लोग साथ में कर रहे हैं, तो अच्छा नहीं I don't eat this, I'm on diet.
Correct.
But when they're alone, they're not really dieting anymore.
They're following a different diet.
Let's do the legends of this map to understand some terms. Let's first define what is metabolism and what is someone's metabolic rate.
Your body, to keep it up and running, you're breathing, you're seeing things, you can hear what is going around. So the basic metabolic processes that keep your body up and running are termed as metabolism. And the amount of calories that you require to keep the body up and running is the basic metabolic rate, basal.
And if you have more muscle, your metabolic rate is higher?
Yeah, it is higher. Yeah. Because it's a more expensive tissue for the body to maintain rather than fat.
If you want to lose weight, the reason to go to the gym is not to lose weight while you are at the gym.
Correct.
It's the rest of the day.
Okay.
And the crazy thing about the brain is that even though it is just say 2% of the body weight, it burns up to 20% of the calories you consume.
Okay.
So this one little organ in your head is burning 20%
the brain
of your
is
BMR.
Burning. This is why if I just have an intense thinking brainstorming session for like 2 hours, I'm hungry at the end of it, like my glucose levels are dropping.
Yeah.
That's absolutely it. Because it requires the prime fuel as well. It requires glucose.
Just to think?
Why did you call it prime fuel?
Because it's the most preferred fuel for the body.
Oh, there are different types of fuel? I just assume glucose is the only one.
No, your body, different organs can burn different fuels.
Okay.
And they all have their preferences.
Okay.
Some of them are more accommodating as to what fuel they can use. Like your liver or your heart. But the brain, since it is so vital for our survival, it requires the most preferred energy source, which is glucose. But it has a backup in the form of ketone bodies, which is one of the major diets.
Yeah. So our brain requires glucose every second. So if it stops getting glucose for even a minute or two, it will start getting damaged. All other organs in the body have more of a reserve. But our brain cannot function without glucose. So if you get hypoglycaemia, which is your blood sugar dropping, the rest of the body is still fine. You're still breathing, your heart is still beating, your stomach is still digesting, your brain shuts down. Which is why hypoglycemia, you will start getting giddy, you will fall down, you'll lose consciousness. If your sugar drops to even 40, 35, the rest of the body is fine. So our brain has very little reserve for lack of glucose.
This is why sometimes if you, like when I'm intermittent fasting and I haven't eaten food for like say 18 hours, if I suddenly get up, I feel a little giddy. Is this
so that's probably dehydration though.
That's maybe dehydration also.
Yeah, because that's a lot of people fast, and then because food is usually associated with drinking, when they fast, they stop drinking water, which is one of the biggest risks of dieting or controlled starvation. You end up dehydrated.
Now let's enter the diets, right? There is a very popular one called keto diet, ketogenic diet, which there was. I have done the keto diet myself. Let's talk about, Doc, can you tell us what's happening in your body when we are on a keto diet?
So a keto diet basically controls two of the variables that we said: what you eat and how much you eat. So how much you eat in reference to the calories that you're eating, and what you eat in reference to the macronutrients. So rather than eating a lot of carbohydrates, you eat more of fats and proteins.
Can you break up macro and micronutrients so that people understand?
Yeah, sure. So macronutrients are nutrients that are required in macro amounts, so in grams. And micronutrients are nutrients that are required in micro amounts, milligrams, micrograms.
Got it. So this is what like gym bros mean, like, oh, I got to get my macros in order
Macros in
today.
place, yes.
Okay. Which macros would mean like, oh, I need to do 80 grams of carbs, 30 grams of protein and whatever, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Carbohydrates, proteins, fats. Those are the three macro.
Got it.
nutrients.
Okay. So you were saying a keto diet is when you're consuming more fats and proteins than carbs.
So the carbs need to be kept extremely low so that the body switches its main fuel. Once you eat carbs, the carbs are digested and turned into glucose. Rather than that, since there are no more carbs available, it switches to the backup fuel, which is ketone bodies.
Okay.
That's where the diet gets its name.
Right. And the ketone bodies now come from fat. And if there's no fat, then it can come from proteins also.
Hang on. Ketone bodies. Let me just double click on this. Okay. Yes. So when your body is out of glucose is still our primary fuel in the body. When the body runs out of glucose, what does the body do? The body is like, hey, I don't have glucose. I need to make more glucose. Yes. So it starts metabolizing fat reserves that are existing in the body, starts breaking them down and turning them into glucose.
Yes, there's a process for that called gluconeogenesis, which means making glucose anew. But the body can't make it at the extent that it can replenish all the carbohydrate deficit by doing gluconeogenesis. That is why it requires the ketosis also, which is producing ketone bodies.
Okay, so primary source of fuel is glucose, and sometimes when your body is out of glucose, what does it do? It turns to fat reserves.
It turns to fat reserves, preferably, if not also to proteins, which is the muscle mass.
Oh, okay. Yeah. How do you prevent the body from eating into your own muscle?
So this is the tricky part, because a lot of people who have been going through starvation, they have muscle loss. It's called asthenia. So their muscles are degrading, their arms and legs become weak because their body is eating into its own protein sources, which is muscle. So the way to avoid it is by telling your body that don't break this. Whatever you do, don't break this. This is important. So you work out and you take protein. You make sure that you have enough protein
reserves. Okay.
And you give the body enough fat so that now you're literally telling your body, not this. This is your main source. So you're retraining your body.
Okay, so ketogenic diet is where you train your body to use fat as a source of fuel.
Yes.
And that is why you eat very lesser amount of carbs. Because carbs turns into glucose very quickly.
Yes.
Okay,
so basically put that into more tangible terms, low as in you need to keep your carbs between 25 to 50 grams in more practical.
That's like 2 slices of bread.
2 slices of bread or just 1 or 2 bananas and you're done carb wise.
Like for the whole day?
For the whole day, yeah. And that needs to be done day in, day out.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
People don't really appreciate how difficult keto diet is because they don't appreciate how much carbs we take in a day.
Yeah.
So this happens
people shouldn't be appreciating anything that's that difficult also.
Yeah, but it's really funny though, because in the hospital, whenever I see a patient say with back pain and I tell them that you have to lose weight, they say, nahi, hum kuch nahi khate. And when I tell them to list out the things they eat, कि दिन में 4-5 चपाती, थोड़ा चावल, फिर थोड़ा सा ही गुलाब जामुन तो बन जाता है, थोड़ा दूध. When you count it,
it adds
up to a lot. So people don't really think about this.
The ghar ka khana is awesome and healthy. If you look at the macros, it's largely carbs.
It's a carb-heavy diet.
Sabji. Actually, sabji not so much. Sabji still you need sabji for fiber, but rice and roti is mostly carbs.
Purely carbs, mostly.
The Indian diet actually works on a very short cycle. So ideally, if you're eating that much carbs and if you're also burning it off with physical activity, that short-term cycle is great. The problem is that we are not burning it off at all. So we don't need to take so much carbs.
Yeah, especially today where most of us are sitting in chairs most of the time.
Exactly.
So, Doc, what is the... So I want to know what is the ideal ratio for your macros? Like how much fat to how much protein will ensure that your body is burning fat as fuel and not eating into your own muscle in a keto diet?
In a keto diet, you need to keep your carbs to 10% or less of the total
calories. Okay.
And fat should give 80% of your calories.
Oh.
And the balance comes from protein, which is 20 to 30. So there is no clear-cut ratio for a keto diet. It is a little bit, there's a little bit of leeway.
Yeah, depending on how much muscle you already have and that kind of thing.
But by and large, it is this.
Okay, got it.
And people track their ketone bodies, right? They check, they do those urine ketone tests.
Correct.
They check if it is +2, +3, +4.
Yes.
And you know when you're in a state of ketosis.
It alters your mind, right?
Yeah. So this is I've been on a keto diet many times. In fact, if you fast for like 48 hours, which I have, ketosis. You just go into a state of ketosis because there's no carbs in your body, right? Yeah. Your piss starts smelling funny because you're pissing out ketones.
Yeah.
Then you get something called a keto flu. Then it alters your mind, what he just said. It's like, I don't know if this is 100% accurate or no, but apparently fat as fuel is really good for your brain. Like your brain uses fat as fuel. So you become alert. You're you can think a lot. You feel like you can focus more because your brain, fat is apparently a good source of fuel for your brain. Is that accurate?
It's a very good source, and it's completely putting the insulin spike and sugar levels coming down. That thing is kept completely out of the equation. That is why you get the clarity and focus on ketone bodies.
Because there is no glucose
spikes going up and down.
So it's more steady. So our brain gets more used to that steady state of energy.
Yeah. This is why whenever I'm fasting, like the first 16 to 18 hour period is hard because that's when your body is like, yo, you're running out of glucose, bro. You got to do something. I need more glucose for energy. But once you cross the 24-hour threshold, your body's like, cool, I'm going to switch to fat. I've got this. And then the next day you have this wave of like 6 to 8 hours of intense energy. You don't feel tired at all. Your body's using all the fat. You get mental clarity. People say things like, I felt less stressed. I felt like I had more clarity of thought when you're fasting.
A good analogy is if you were only living out all your expenses from the money in your wallet, right? And every time your money runs out in your wallet, you start feeling that you don't have any money. And then the first time you discover debit cards or credit cards and you realize that, account mein 10 lakh pada hai.
Correct.
That feeling would give you a lot of peace of mind.
Oh, I can just continue swiping it.
You have this much.
Wow.
So even if you don't have cash, it's fine.
What an analogy.
That's what it is.
This is probably the best analogy you have given in all the episodes we have done together. I never thought that my fat reserves and my SBI debit card
is the
same
have
something in common.
Yeah.
People, because they hear of like the keto diet, like almost like as a solution, right? Because people say if you're diabetic, you should try and see if you can either fast or be on a keto diet because there's lesser glucose spikes in a keto diet, right? Naturally, because you're avoiding carbs. Yeah. Is it a safe diet to pursue?
For short terms, definitely it's a safe diet to pursue. If you have some medical conditions like pancreatitis, it would be an absolute disaster to do a keto diet.
Yes.
There are some medical conditions, on the other hand, for which keto diets are therapeutic, like epilepsy.
Yes.
But by and large, on a long term, because the carbohydrates are restricted, carbohydrates come with a lot of micronutrients, fibers, B vitamins, vitamin C, and that can get a little on the lower side. You might not get enough of those.
So you'd want to do a keto diet with supplementation with it, so you make sure you're getting all your micronutrients.
Definitely.
So
Or you could include the right kinds of carbohydrates. So rather than having a chapati for your carbohydrate, you could go for a guava. So you get vitamin C.
I don't like guava.
You don't like guava?
Okay, then you can have a pomegranate
I
instead.
prefer the pills.
There are two main challenges to keto. One is that people don't really appreciate how difficult it is. Like we already said.
Yeah.
Our body did not evolve to be following a keto diet, right? It's because what was available was more fat, protein, but then you would eat carbs. So over a long time, over thousands of years, we became used to eating carbs. So our gut digestion, the way that the food moves through the gut, kind of depends on carbs being there.
Oh, really?
So in that transition phase, when you cut out carbs, our gut really doesn't know how to move this along. So a lot of people have bowel movement problems. And
Oh, yeah. By the way, if you're like, I have experienced this.
Sure.
If you're on a keto diet, like you're pooping like once in 2 days, it's a problem.
It's because of the fiber.
It's because lack of fiber.
Lack of fiber.
Lack of
You're
fiber.
not eating it.
Yeah.
And none of these micronutrient absorptions happen independently, right? We look at it like, oh, zinc absorb ho raha hai. But our body has learned to do all this together. So now
Zinc absorb हो रहा है. Like, आज 4 बजे मेरा zinc absorb हो रहा है, bro.
But our gut did not learn to do that. So a lot of these micronutrient absorptions depended on other things being there at a receptor level. So some of those receptors is like, अच्छा मैं glucose को अंदर लूँगा और उसके साथ साथ मैं zinc को. So now glucose isn't there, carbs isn't there. Then some of the other absorptions also get affected.
Yeah.
I find it so funny when we make our body talk in Hindi.
What is our body's language? Like Sanskrit.
ये सुन brain को बोल के आना थोड़ा आड़ा हो रहा है यहाँ पे. Like, it's such a funny personification. So keto diet net for a short period of time, conducive.
Because it's unsustainable in the long
It's
term.
unsustainable because it's hard to get
Hard
your
to
macros
follow.
right, and
And it can leave you quite unhappy. If you're a vegetarian,
yeah.
there are not a lot of foods that will have that kind of, fat, protein,
Correct.
carbohydrate ratio.
Correct.
Then you'll have to rely on powders, protein powders or something like that. And then that diet naturally can't go on for very long.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people talk about happiness and diet together.
Yeah. Yeah. So keto is a tough one because life without carbs is not as much fun. You want a little bit of carb, but it's effective when you want to burn fat.
So ketone bodies are protective for the brain overall. There are studies that show that Alzheimer's mein ketone diet is useful. Parkinson mein ketone diet is useful because it helps to slow down brain degeneration. So those parts are good. In some other diseases, very risky, like uncontrolled diabetes. Insulin तुम्हारा ज़्यादा है, तुमने बिल्कुल खाना कम कर दिया, your sugars will drop. And sudden hypoglycemia, like we said, is fatal.
It's fatal.
So somebody
Sudden
will,
hypoglycemia is fatal?
right.
Yeah,
So-
because you have very low sugars, and then that can actually escalate if you're trying to do a keto diet and have a hypoglycemic state. You could go into ketoacidosis.
What is that?
So ketoacidosis is when there are too many ketone bodies in your bloodstream, and your body can't take them up.
It's about the suddenness of it.
Yeah.
So a healthy person doing a keto diet, gradually getting into that keto state, now your body has time to adjust. But normal glucose level, normal ketone, now suddenly glucose has dropped and ketone has gone up. That makes it a disease. That's a life-threatening problem. So diabetic ketoacidosis, we have lost so many patients because of that. Even though that would probably be the ideal state for somebody doing keto diet, but after a month, not in one day. So that is very important. So people trying to do this suddenly, they have to know that this is a dangerous thing.
Okay. Now that we've sufficiently scared people.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next diet. Our next diet that we want to discuss is a Mediterranean diet.
Yes.
Could you explain what is a Mediterranean diet and is it practiced in the Mediterranean?
So it is practiced in a lot of the Mediterranean countries. When the diet was actually formulated, they focused more on the south of Spain, that region of the Mediterranean. And it's not a very restrictive diet. It's more of a general guideline about what you should eat,
Okay.
So the diet just gives you recommendations, include more of nuts, whole grains, beans. It sounds very intuitively right, actually. And it is a lot of lower amounts of animal products, more of seafood, very low amounts of red meat.
It's
And
more lean meat, right?
yeah,
It's,
more lean meat.
yeah, poultry and...
Yeah, that's why more of seafood and less of red meat. And it's one of the most studied diets also by the medical community, by
So
scientists.
more of poultry and seafood or not poultry?
Poultry, yes. Seafood, yes. Milk, yes.
Red meat, no.
Red meat,
Very
no.
little.
And a lot of fruits,
Fresh
nuts,
fruits, vegetables, a lot.
Eat local, that kind of thing.
So what most people generally would do anyway.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So we are all kind of following that. There are a lot of people in India who will have chai, who will have milk, and who will have eggs. They would avoid the heavier meats.
Heavier meats, yeah. They would avoid red meat. Red meat in general, people tell you to avoid.
Yes. And even then, actually in India, like we were speaking the other day, non-vegetarian is not really non-vegetarian. Because if you compare it with the US and the UK, what they mean by non-vegetarian.
Yeah.
Even a
They really-
non-vegetarian.
their pizza is like really pizza.
Yes.
It's like कुछ भी दिखा उसको मैं काट के डाल देगा pizza पे. It's like that.
I have non-vegetarian eating friends who go to the UK, have one English breakfast and they say, "Bas, मेरा हफ्ते का non-veg हो गया."
Yeah.
So there is a lot of difference in what you mean by amount of non-veg eating also. So we are all kind of on a Mediterranean diet already.
Which is okay. Chicken, fish, sabzi, lentils.
A lot of pulses, a lot
Yes.
of nuts.
lot of pulses, nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And this has been the highest studied diet. And the benefits are definitely there.
Yeah, a lot of benefits.
Okay, like?
Blood pressure reduction, improvement in your lowering of your blood sugar levels for diabetics, better control over your body weight. So maintenance of body weight over a long period of time. And it's a more easy diet to follow as well because it's not very restrictive.
It says that you can have wine as part of this diet.
Yeah, you can.
That is more of a local thing because again, Spain, Italy, that's where having wine is common. So
I think the whole thing about wine, when it comes to this health food talk, is because of one single compound called resveratrol. It's all over the net, and it's an antioxidant that's found primarily in red wine. But the amount is highly variable, batch per batch. The amount of resveratrol varies. Also,
Why is this compound so significant?
So it's considered to be an antioxidant.
Yeah.
So supposed to reduce aging, supposed to reduce the number of heart attacks. So there are studies that were done on wine. The unfortunate thing is that people have taken that one study and said कि देखा दारू पीना ठीक है, which is a problem because वहाँ पे they have one glass of wine with dinner and
leave it
that's
at
it. And here we are on our sixth cocktail and
Yeah.
वो एक study.
बढ़िया diet है. Yeah. One second. So, is it possible for me to have this compound? Can you tell me what the name is again?
the resveratrol.
Resveratrol. Is it possible for me to consume this compound without the wine
As a supplement, yes.
as a supplement? तो wine तो बस बहाना है.
बहाना है.
Bahana hai.
Okay, understood. So, net Mediterranean diet. If most people, I think, at least in my friend circle, when they're trying to be healthy, they're roughly following this. When they say beans, do they include like rice beans or other kind of beans?
Beans are any of the whole beans: moong, masoor, chana, kidney beans,
Got it.
rajma,
Got
all
it.
of them.
Love rajma. Big fan.
But without the rice.
Without the rice. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. Got it. So Mediterranean diet, easy to follow, relatively healthy, can keep your weight down, good for your heart. This mostly includes a lot of stuff that we consume in an Indian diet anyway, minus the rice roti. but also including poultry and fish.
Yes.
And we're avoiding red meat.
And most importantly, the reason it works is that it's all local stuff.
Okay, so the next diet I want to talk about is vegan diet. I have a couple of friends now who are vegan.
We all do.
Yeah, we all do. Yeah.
We all have that.
We all have those friends. For me personally, being fully vegan is tough. It's a tough one to follow. Like you have to really want to be vegan to do it. Can you guys explain what is the vegan diet? What are some of the caveats? Because vegan is different from vegetarian.
Yes.
What are the differences?
Okay, so vegan diet excludes all products that come from animals. So milk,
honey.
Those are basically the only two that separate them from the lacto-vegetarians. So vegetarian is basically a plant-based diet. And then you could divide vegetarianism into veganism, where you avoid all products coming from animals. Lacto-vegetarianism, where you're okay with drinking milk because you don't kill the animal, but no killing. And then there's a lacto-ovo-vegetarian diet as well, in which you eat eggs as well as milk and vegetarian food.
So there's just, I'm not ordering chicken, roughly.
Yeah. You are having chicken before it's a chicken.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So a lacto-ovo-vegetarian diet is very similar to a Mediterranean diet then.
Yes,
Because it's
it is.
almost the same now.
Almost the same.
Right.
It says that the primary concern with the vegan diet is that there is a lack of vitamin B12 source. First, like, what is B12? Why do we need it? And what are the sources?
Vitamin B12 is one of the micronutrients. So it's one of those vitamins that our body needs to consume from food. And it is only available, its predominant sources are animal products. So vegetables don't have that much B12. So people who are on vegetarian or vegan diets, they tend to have a lower B12 than people who consume animal products.
Got it.
So there are case reports of kids born to vegan mothers who've had B12 deficiency even at the age of like 1 or 2.
Oh, okay.
Because their body has not had enough time to get B12 from anywhere else. So this is a problem. And so if somebody is going on...
your neural system from developing as well.
So B12 is one of the most important constituents for forming myelin sheaths, which is the covering of the nerves. So the nerve will form, but that covering will decide how quickly the nerves can talk to each other, neurons can talk to each other. So without that myelin sheath... In Hindi, yes. अरे सुनना तो वो नहीं सुनेगा क्योंकि B12 नहीं है. So there is cognitive decline, memory loss, all of those things can happen. I've had patients with seizures because of lack of B12. Yeah. So this is a problem, and so they need to have B12 supplements.
Doc, what is the primary difference between like plant-based protein and animal protein?
So protein from a dietary point of view is divided into class A, class B proteins. Class A proteins are the proteins which are complete. So there are amino acids that proteins are made out of, and there are essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. So the 9 essential amino acids are all present in all animal sources, whereas the plant sources have 1 or 2 amino acids lacking, because of which you need to pair the foods correctly, like rice and dal, not necessarily at the same meal, but over a course of time, all the food should be present. That's why they are called class 2 proteins.
So for example, choline is an amino acid, which I think has, you find it more in animal-based sources, not so much in plant. And so choline is very important for a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine.
Yeah.
And so people who are on strict vegan diets, if they have low choline, they may have these issues where acetylcholine is not formed enough. Acetylcholine is important for memory and learning. So again, if you are on a strict vegan diet and if you have low choline reserves, then you should have supplements. So that's one of the challenges of vegan diet. You just have to make sure that all of your supplements are in place.
This is starting to sound like if you're a vegetarian and you do not eat any meat, you're kind of missing out on some essential nutrients. Is that accurate or fair to say?
You can be missing out on. And that's why actually I think in India, where vegetarianism is so prevalent, they've never shifted really to veganism. It's always been the lacto-vegetarian diet that has been followed, because the little bit of help that you get from the animal products like milk, dahi, paneer, those things, helps to sustain and supplement your diet with purely plant-based.
But people should not feel concerned that, oh, I'm a vegetarian, am I missing out on optimal health and nutrition?
Correct.
As long as, you keep a track of what nutrients you should be consuming, as long as your blood markers are okay, you're still largely, you can still be, very optimal about your health despite being vegetarian, right?
Of course. So right from our grandfathers, great grandfathers, we've seen that they've all been good on a pretty much vegetarian diet and kind of lived up to 85, 90, still running around.
The proof is right in front of us.
Some people would complain that they live for too long also, waiting for your property. I keep hearing omega-3. You must have.
Yeah.
I've been having omega-3 capsule for years now, that beautiful golden colored capsule. What is omega-3? Where is it prevalent? Why is it important?
So omega-3 is an essential fatty acid. It's useful for your nerve functioning of your brain, formation, maintenance of the lining of your intestines and skin, etc. And it is predominantly found in animal products again.
Okay.
It's predominantly in fish. So cod liver oil.
That's the oil that's
inside the capsule.
Yes,
that's inside the capsule.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of evidence for omega-3 specifically on brain development. Again, mostly on animal studies, but some on human as well, where there are cognitive changes that happen if somebody is given omega-3 fatty acid. The issue is though that in everyday life, these changes can be hard to notice within a few weeks or months, because we are talking in years, because our body has a lot of reserve. So it can make up for a lack of a nutrient by supplementing with something else. But over a long time, and especially in old age, those reserves drop down. That is when these nutritional problems really show up. So somebody who's lacking a nutrient at the age of 30 versus who's lacking that nutrient at the age of 80, the effect is going to be different. So probably one of the biggest things about nutrition is that your old age should go better. That's why we are eating healthy from a
young age. But again, on the omega-3s, although a lot of it is found in non-vegetarian sources, there are vegetarian sources as well. There are three kinds of omega-3 fatty acids actually. It's ALA, DHA and EPA. So the ALA is the form that's found in vegetarian food, and it can be converted to a certain amount to the other forms, which the body can readily uptake.
मतलब जुगाड़ कर रहा है. Body is doing जुगाड़ as much as possible. But if you're not even giving the vegetarian form, which is again found in nuts and grains. So if you're not giving even that, then it becomes an issue. So usually all these diets, if you're doing it completely, then our body does find a way, given enough time. But if you keep switching, for one, if you're not giving the body enough time to adjust to it, and if you're not even taking all the stuff that is allowed in that diet, if you're eating only pizzas and sandwiches, for example, then it is going to be an issue.
I like pizzas and sandwiches. Just saying. All right. Next up is my favorite diet, most effective for me, it's called intermittent fasting or IF. Can you संक्षेप में बताइए what is IF and why is it useful broadly?
So intermittent fasting is a diet where you control the when you eat part of the diet, and it's one of the only diets where you control the when you eat, the timing rather than what you eat in particular. And what you do is you encourage the body to use up its glycogen reserves, which is the stored glucose in your body, and get it to shift to ketosis in a way. And what that does is it makes you eat less, firstly, because there's a time restriction naturally. And secondly, the amount of fats and proteins being high, it helps you to gain muscle, which, like you said, we discussed in the beginning, is good for weight loss.
How does IF help you gain muscle?
Because the macronutrients help it. The profile of macronutrients is conducive. More of proteins.
So if I'm not mistaken, IF can be, it's intermittent fasting. It can be of different lengths.
Yes.
Some people do 16 hours of fasting, 8-hour window where they eat food. Some people do 18 hours of fasting and 6-hour window.
Yeah.
People also do 24, 22 and 2. People also do these kind of variants of IF, or sometimes people also do extended fasting, which is 24 to 48 hours as well. But in the window that you eat, like if I fast for 16 hours and I have an 8-hour window to eat, but if I'm not being good about my macros, you can screw the diet up. There's no point fasting for 16 hours and then eating pizzas and sandwiches in the 8 hours.
Yeah. So the point of it is still calorie deficit. But the point of intermittent fasting is that it gives calorie deficit a framework. So it's not that you have to eat healthy throughout the day. Now you have to eat healthy only for 8 hours. Which, funnily enough, that makes it easier. Because at least you're not eating at all for the rest of the 16 hours.
Yeah, it's easy. It's good. Lesser cognitive load, because you're just like, I'm just going to eat in this window entirely.
Correct.
So what is happening in your body when you're not eating? Glycogen is being depleted, which is effectively glucose reserves are being depleted.
Yeah.
And the longer you fast, what happens once glucose reserves are depleted?
Once glucose reserves are depleted, the body searches for an alternative source of fuel, and then it has its ketone bodies got from
fat
fat.
reserves. Yeah, okay.
That it digs
So
into.
in intermittent fasting, we are touching
We
ketosis
just
and coming
touch
back.
it. And you might not touch it as well. If your carbohydrates are a little higher, let's say it's like 50 to 60 grams of carbs, you might not touch ketosis, but the calorie deficit, like you said, and the restricted time frame for eating ensures that you do lose weight in either case.
I feel like the main benefits of intermittent and keto is a calorie deficit. कुछ भी करो तुम्हारा calories तो कम हो ही रहा है. And second is resilience. Just by the act of controlling what you eat and when are you not eating, you are learning to get over that urge to eat whatever you want. So that ability to say no to food is probably the biggest benefit.
Yes.
Because then that carries forward to everything else, right? Like now you can use that resilience to go to the gym more, to work out better.
Correct.
So that is, in my opinion, that's the biggest benefit of intermittent fasting and keto.
Surely, I think the calorie deficit part is the one thing that ensures success. If calorie deficit for weight loss, if the calorie deficit isn't there, then no matter what diet you do, you're
Correct.
not going to lose weight.
Yeah. I have found personal success in doing different variants of intermittent fasting. I began with 16, then I moved on to 18, then I've experimented with 24, 48 hours. Most people find this very hard. Just the idea that, I have to skip breakfast. Like usually the cycle that I follow is dinner before 10 p.m. and then skipping breakfast and directly going to lunch or a late lunch or maybe directly to an evening meal. Most people find this extremely hard.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I can't even imagine going till lunch directly, because say someone eats dinner at 8:30, by the time they've reached breakfast time, which is 9 a.m., they're already 12 hours through.
Yeah.
So your glycogen reserves are already depleted and your body's like, I
feel there's a large element of psychological dependence on food as well. We're just not used to the idea of not having food around whenever you want it.
One of the key things of fasting I have found is to keep yourself so busy
Correct.
that you don't really think about food, and then it becomes easier. Because
Correct.
I have fasted without really planning to. Many times in my life, and it's not been difficult at all.
There's a reason why we are scheduling this at 2:30 in the afternoon. So I can get through till my 4 p.m. Yeah.
Exactly. And so if you can somehow plan your day to fill it up so that you don't think about food, it makes it so much easier to diet.
What are some side effects of IF? Like I know friends who have tried IF who are like, dude, my head hurts.
Yeah.
I feel weak. I feel lethargic. I feel low energy. I feel sleepy. Why does this happen?
I think jumping into a very strict or restricted form of IF very soon is going to cause things like that, because hypoglycemia again. So your head will hurt, you'll feel weak, you'll feel dizzy, not drinking enough water.
Exactly. I feel like it's about the water intake. When we don't eat, subconsciously we dissociate from all forms of, oral input.
Correct.
So we end up drinking almost 1 or 1.5 liters less than what we usually do. So it has to be an active effort. And many times if you just keep drinking enough water, A, you're not even that hungry. And B, you will not have all these side effects. At the max, you could have water with electrolytes.
Yeah.
So electrolyte supplement, just simple sodium, potassium, that could be enough, especially if you're going to be sweating, if you're going to be in the gym. Electrolyte depletion is a problem. So if your sodium levels drop even a little bit, you can have headache, giddiness, dizziness, confusion as it goes on dipping more and more. So it's not so much the hypoglycemia as the dehydration and the electrolyte deficiency.
I've noticed oftentimes what I would do is I would, at hour 16 or at hour 18 of the fast, I'll go for a walk or I'll go to the gym at the end of my fast to just give me that extra boost towards the end of my fast.
Right.
And I would have a CGM, which is a continuous glucose monitoring system on my arm. And I noticed that my glucose levels actually go up.
Exactly.
When I go to work out.
Exactly.
It's usually it's lower. Usually it's at the bottom of the what it should be at. Then when I work out, the glucose levels slightly start going up.
Yeah.
Because it's my body while I'm working out realizing that I need some energy.
Yeah.
So it starts breaking down fat and turning it into glucose.
Yeah.
Correct.
It even happens if I have an intense ideating session towards the end of a fast.
Yeah.
Where I'm just doing a lot of thinking, I just suddenly notice there's a glucose spike. Or if I'm feeling stressed about something.
So if you give someone steroids for whatever reason, their sugar levels shoot up. Because steroid is a stress hormone, just like cortisol. So when cortisol goes up in your body is saying, listen, you are in danger. You either need to run or fight. So you need urgent glucose.
Correct.
और अगर बाहर से नहीं आ रहा है तो तुम अंदर से कहीं से तो निकाल लो.
Body is so fascinating. Body is just like, I wish all organs could have access to my eyes so it can see ki actually you're fine. You don't need to stress so much. But maybe it's a good thing. Artificial stress is maybe an interesting thing. Yeah. Does IF aid in improving cognitive function? Depends on how long you're fasting for, I suppose.
It might help in cognitive function by cutting out all the crap that you're eating. Refined food, processed food. But per se, if you supplement your diet with things that help in cognitive function, like berries, nuts, antioxidant rich food, sure.
Yeah. I still feel that the biggest cognitive boost is just learning to say no to food.
Yeah.
That can clear up a lot of headspace for you.
Have you guys tried IF yourselves?
16 hours, not more than
16
that.
hours.
Yeah.
I've done the 24-hour fast on a busy day. That helped.
Yeah. I've done 24 without realizing, like I said, in residency. Sometimes you realize that, wait, when did I eat last? Yesterday breakfast, damn. And you don't feel so bad. You feel that, theek hai,
I think a lot of medical residents are in ketosis.
Yes,
Just because of that.
Probably, yes. But the lack of sleep offsets all the benefit you get out of it.
People say that IF also helps. IF is intermittent fasting. People say that IF also helps in reducing inflammation of the body. What does that mean? What is inflammation in the body and how does IF help reduce it?
So one of the things that fasting does is it reduces gut inflammation. So if you're eating food, you are basically taking in foreign items into your body, right? So our gut is the first line of defense for anything that comes in from outside. So our gut has to filter out all the bad stuff and only absorb the good stuff. So there's a lot of inflammatory cells in the gut walls. If you're eating junk or if you're eating things that are not good for you, our gut has to do a lot of fighting. So there is always some amount of inflammation going on. That is a good thing. It's good inflammation. When you diet, those things kind of settle down. So there's less inflammation going on. And that over time can translate to overall less inflammatory activity going on in the body. which is a good thing. But again, starvation can lead to
Stress and
Correct.
inflammation.
Starvation can lead to stress. That can lead to more inflammation. So there's a fine line. So
What
the
I
right amount
also-
of dieting can help.
What I also feel is that when people decide to go on any sort of diet, they do subconsciously or consciously make an effort to cut out the processed food, refined foods from their diet. And that also plays a factor in reducing levels of inflammation, because processed and refined food is definitely inflammatory.
Doc, can I ask what is the difference between processed and ultra processed foods?
Yeah, so processed food, all food, to make it edible and palatable, you cook it, right?
Yes.
So cooking is a form of processing food.
Processing, yeah.
Ultra processing is when the food is changed beyond recognition. Like you just can't see how this thing could have come out of a farm. You know, like let's
chips,
say, like chips,
like fried chips,
like
yeah.
chips or candies, ice creams. Those kind of things, they undergo so much of refinement, things added to them, things taken out of them.
So like a cinnamon roll is ultra processed.
It's ultra processed.
Understood.
So ultra processed we should avoid.
Avoid, yeah.
Net. Yeah.
All right.
Especially cinnamon rolls. Sugar but they're so yum. That's good advice, gentlemen. This was a lot to process. And hopefully there's a lot for people to take away. Net, it sounds like what I've heard from many dietitians and nutritionists, which is have a balanced diet.
Yeah.
Right? No need to go extreme on anything. We covered the keto diet, we covered the Mediterranean diet, which feels fairly balanced.
Yeah.
We covered intermittent fasting. So whatever, like people can pick and choose what kind of works for them, what their lifestyle is, what their health goals are. And some folks might want to lose weight, some folks might want to put on muscle. DYOR, do your own research. Make sure you look up what you're eating and what you should be doing. And for everything else, we have Dr. Ruchir and Sid. Please follow them on Instagram. Details are in description. Subscribe to this channel for more such stuff. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
See you guys next time.
Cheers.